This is episode 5 of English Voiceover in Asia. I am your host, Yui Haruhara, and today's guest is another from Japan, Charles Glover. Like Eric Kelso from a few episodes ago, Charles also does a lot of work for NHK, and this ties into my story of getting in touch with him. This story goes back to January 15th, 2022. An underwater volcano erupted in the Tonga archipelago and triggered a massive tsunami that was on its way to Japan. I have a lot of friends in Japan and wanted to make sure they were okay. I kept up by watching NHK World. During one of the in-between segments, there was an ancient story being narrated in English. I checked the credits to see who narrated the segment. A man named Charles Glover. I recognized his name but couldn't remember where. I looked up Charles and saw that he was in Mega Man ZX Advent. For those who don't know, I am a huge Mega Man fan. Not only that, but he was also in Pokken Tournament and the Detective Conan anime, plus 2 of the films. He's one of the few people that could say he's spoken both Japanese and English in the series. He spoke Japanese in the anime, but in the films The Fist of Blue Sapphire and The Scarlet Bullet, he voiced characters that speak in English, although those voice lines were redubbed for the American versions. Charles was a lot of fun to interview, and he had fun too. He's been excited for this to go live, as have I. You'll learn he does more than just voice acting in our interview. Without further delay, here's my interview with Charles Glover. All right, so go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Charles Glover. I'm originally from New Mexico, actually. I'm an actor and voice person, I guess, voice actor. Yeah, I currently live in Tokyo, and I do work in a variety of fields. Yeah. I do different stuff, so that's why it's always kind of strange to feel like I'm pigeonholing myself. So
yeah, why did you move to Japan?
Oh, it's kind of a long story. I'll try to give you a thumbnail version of it. I was an actor in high school, undergrad, grad school, and I got really sick of it and wanted something new. And I had a teacher. I went to NYU, and one of my teachers was in the Peace Corps, and he had talked about what a big influence it was on him. So I talked to him about that, and that kind of stuck in my mind. So I went into the Peace Corps, and I was a volunteer in a place called Micronesia, which is basically between Hawaii and the Philippines. And it was a wonderful, life-changing experience. And when I finished, I wasn't quite ready to go home. I had one holiday, and I decided to go to Thailand. And I had been to Europe as a college kid with no money in my pockets, just kicking around. So I had seen other countries, but going to Thailand really opened up my eyes because it was so exotic and different and non-Western. So I wasn't quite ready to go home and back to the States, I mean. And so when I finished, I heard you could get work in Japan, and I had 2 really good things. I had training and I had experience. So I came to Japan thinking I might come for a year or so. And as they say here, attoyuma, in the blink of an eye, it's more than 20 years. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, well.
So you said you do a lot of different things. What other things do you do other than voice work?
I'm a photographer as well, still photographer mostly. Yeah, I love to travel. Travel is probably my biggest passion. And so I kind of like to mix the 2 together if possible. Of course, during COVID, I can't. But,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's just how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I finally have been making use of by being stuck at home. I've been going through cleaning out some stuff, and I came across some old 8mm videotapes, and I've been digitizing them. And it's good because some of them are starting to decay. But it's good. It's good to see. Yeah, it's good to see stuff and to preserve stuff. But it's interesting. Memory is not what you think it is. You have this. I'll give you an example. I went to this place called Hokkaido, which is the North Island. It's kind of like the Alaska of Japan. And I have this memory of seeing this fox by the side of the road. And my memory was that these green verdant fields and this beautiful, typical red fox with the white tip on the tip on the tail. Well, I see the video, and I don't think it happened more than once. It was kind of the outside of town, not by a strip mall, but there were some buildings around, and it was gray, and this fox was really scrawny, really, really kind of yucky looking. And I thought, oh my gosh, memory is not what we think it is. But
Wow.
yeah, I like to I make little videos. I make slideshows and stuff when I have time, and I haven't made one in a while, but yeah, I enjoy doing that a lot. I love to cook, and I'm a bit of a gardener. I've got quite a garden for someone that lives in an apartment. So, yeah. And as I said, my regular work is working for a place called NHK. It's kind of like BBC and PBS wrapped into one kind of thing. Well, I do that, and I do freelance voice work. I everything from like widgets and describing how a door opens in a car, or all the way up to like the good jobs, which is like a voice, what they call a voice logo for a corporation, things like Panasonic and stuff like that. So and I got back into acting about 10 years ago.
Wonderful.
And I'm a different person, and I like it much more than I ever did. And well, that's misleading. I like it, but in a different way than when I was a kid. It's more of me instead of performing and trying to be someone else. It's and I like it. I'm a bit picky about what I do, meaning there's different opportunities here, like recreations of like crime stories, recreations and stuff like that. And I have zero interest in that. So I'm a little picky about what I do.
Okay.
So
how long have you been doing work for like NHK?
Oh, well, that's kind of a freelance wise, like bits and pieces, piecemeal stuff. Geez, almost as long as I've been here. But regular, like going in there 3 times a week, I guess about 10, 12 years, I guess. Yeah. I used to live in Kyoto, actually. When I first came to Japan, I lived in Kyoto, which is kind of the cultural basis of Japan in a lot of ways. It was the capital for like 1,000 years. And I don't know if you know this, but Tokyo, actually, the proper name is To-Kyoto, which means East Kyoto. Kyoto means capital. Yeah. But I lived there for 5 years, got into radio. And then I moved to Tokyo specifically to work in radio. Radio was my mainstay for a good 10 years. So, but the radio industry has pretty much died. It's gone. It's there, but it's similar. I'm not sure if you're old enough to know, but back before there was talk radio, there actually was like music radio is in the States, I guess, is how it's changed. But here it's suffered, but not quite as bad. There never were that many stations, but it's, as far as foreigners and stuff, it's the work is pretty much dwindled down to almost nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, that's the way technology changes.
Yeah, it is.
You've got, people, the way MP3 files and iPods, I don't like to use that word, but MP3 players and stuff.
Right.
You can, I literally, I have ripped all of the music I have. I've got like 4,000 albums. That doesn't mean I'm rich. It means I worked at a radio station, got a lot of free albums. Of course, I bought a bunch, but I ripped all of that. And it's like 230 gigabytes, and it can fit on a micro SD card, a tiny little memory,
right?
Instead of just stacks and stacks and stacks of CDs and stuff. So
that is absolutely wild.
I'm walking around. I can listen to, within a few seconds, I can find something. I can listen to almost anything I want. And when I first came to Japan, that was not the case. If you had to, CDs had come out, you had to carry a bunch of stuff. You had to carry this big player, but now it's a different world. So I do voice work. I also do I do video games. That's been
Yeah.
a fair amount of work in
Yes,
that. I enjoy doing those. Those are actually quite fun to do.
yeah, because I recognize you for Buckfire from Mega Man ZX Advent.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
me
Right.
Buckfire. I was telling my friend who's a giant Mega Man fan that I was doing this interview. It's like, wow, that is so cool.
Well, this is going to sound strange, maybe, but I actually was doing a voice job for, again, it was like a widget making thing. And I don't think it had anything to do with games at all. And this young lady showed up. She was a foreigner. And she said, "Can I have your autograph?" And I said, "What?" But it was for a game. It had nothing to do with the voice job. She had played some game and was a big fan of this game. It was Elite Beat Angels. I don't agents or
Oh,
maybe I can't remember what it was. But anyway, her boyfriend was like doing this job, and she had, I guess he had mentioned to her about the cast. And I was kind of, it was strange. Put it that way. It was a
that is
surprise. That's
incredible.
the word. Surprise. Surprise is the word.
That is actually incredible. Yeah. What is it like doing voiceover work in Japan as someone who speaks English primarily?
I tell you what popped to mind. I was still living in Kyoto, and I was doing this job in Osaka, and there was all this description going on. Do this, do that, do this, do that in Japanese, and everyone speaking Japanese. And suddenly I opened my mouth and say something like, "This is a pen." It's so bizarre. It was so bizarre then that all the instruction, the direction is in Japanese, and then I open my mouth and speak English. It's just strange in a lot of ways, but it's good. There are times where I guess in any country, in any culture, this would happen, but I've had disagreements with people about contextual things, grammatical things.
Mm.
You'll get somebody who's maybe lived abroad, and a Japanese person thinks they're like know exactly everything about English, and let's just say this, maybe they don't. I was doing a job one time. I can't remember what it was, thankfully. But it was pretty particular, and there I wish I could remember the phrase, but it was something. They got the tense. It was wrong, and they had said to me, "Oh, but this grammatically is correct," and I said, "No, I'm sorry, it's not." And it's very difficult to, especially if it's a client and the client is sitting there, and maybe they've paid money to come up with this copy, and for you to say, this uppity foreigner is saying, this doesn't look good, or it doesn't sound good. And the what comes to mind was this time where we were locking horns, and the guy said, "Well, I found it on the internet, ergo it's correct."
Oh my gosh. No.
Yeah. No, yeah. Well, it's on the internet, it's correct. It was something to do with zoonotic or zoological, but it was wrong. It was just wrong, and it sounded, and it was wrong. And I ended up, here's the thing, I ended up, I think I finally just gave up and said, let's just do two takes. We'll do the correct version, and then we'll do your version. And I'm sure they used their version. So,
oh my gosh.
and the thing is sorry to interrupt, but I was just going to say, the thing is that where do you draw the line? Because I'm not that vain that I don't want to sound stupid, but then again, if you've got something where you sound like an idiot, where you're saying something obviously grammatically incorrect, it's not good. It's not good. So you know what I did? I just thought of the two strangest things: Hitler and Adolf Hitler and aliens. And I just searched for that
Oh my goodness.
on the internet. And sure enough, I found a picture and an article. So I have that on my phone. And I said, anytime somebody said, well, it's on the internet. And I said, well, if you look long enough and hard enough, anything is on the internet. And I show him the picture of this picture of, it's pretty good actually, a picture of Hitler shaking hands with an alien.
That is amazing.
Yeah, well, you know, if you look hard enough, you'll find it. So
that is phenomenal.
But generally, I mean, I don't want to cast too much of a dispersion. Generally, it's generally things are okay. But the other thing I'll do is I'll say, well, I'll come up with a nonsensical sentence in Japanese, like hito de ikkyo ni tabete irumasu. And they're like, well, that's nonsense. Well, would you want to say that in if you were doing a Japanese narration, would you want to say that? Well, then I'm doing an English narration. You want it to be correct, don't you? But of course, you know, you can't be too forceful. But
right,
yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, because that was one of the sub questions of that is when you're recording, do you need to make adjustments to whatever you're reading, or is it good already?
Oh, I might get in trouble for saying this, but
thankfully I can clip stuff out.
No. You can use whatever I say. Not quite. I'm just trying to think of a percentage, and I can't think of a percentage. Okay, I did something for NHK today, and actually it was fine. Last week we did 3, and there was one mistake. But then again, they've got a guy copywriting it, and he's half Japanese and half American. So, but a lot of the times, let's see, I'm doing something tomorrow for a company called Renova, and it was pretty good. It seems recently they get a little bit better. Sometimes with games, it's not. But like I said, the strange thing is if you've got a company, a client, production staff, and they trust you. If you come in like a bull in a china shop and trying to make a bunch of changes, that, you know, regardless of where you are and who you are, that's not maybe the best way to go. So it's important to be delicate about it. And I'll say this, and a lot of the time it's true, I don't like to make changes, and I like to keep it as close to the original as possible. However, this particular word, I did something, let's see, last week for a program on NHK World. Won't say which one it is, but there's some people that they get a little sensitive if I come in and try to make too many changes. I've been doing it for a couple of years, but if I'm delicate about it and say, well, how about this? And recently they've gotten to the point where they'll say, okay, we'll listen to what you say, and if we have big issues with it, we'll change. But no, we want it the way it is. But that took a couple of years to get there. I've got another thing I do. It's a cooking show. I'll mention this one. It's a cooking show, and I've been doing it for a long time, thankfully. And they trust me that I'm making the program. I want to make the program better, and the changes I'm making are not to make me look good, for example, or sound good, or appear to be the smart guy, but that I'm doing it because I want to make the program better, and I want it to sound better.
Right. Yeah, because when you get something painfully wrong, that's when, like, how memes are born.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, in the Japanese erection this time, yes, it was a huge erection. An upcoming giant erection in Japan.
Yeah, just the silly grammatical mistakes,
which for you and I snicker about it. The Japanese are like, "What? What's the problem?"
Yeah, where it's just like
maybe people listening. There's
in
Japan, R's and L's are
those are always fun, especially for translators when I have to do like names and stuff.
Yeah.
Always a blast.
Yeah. Being able to communicate with clients directly in Japanese is a huge help. And especially if it's an issue of, if I want to make a change or have a suggestion, if I say it very nicely in Japanese, makes a big difference.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're very, very nice about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
because the people I generally talk to, like it's
Hmm.
I talk to people from Japan, obviously, and I talk to people from Hong Kong and Singapore, and they all kind of have the same thing where it's like when they're doing scripts, like sometimes it's not the best.
Yeah. 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 Well,
Especially
that's not
Singapore.
surprising. Yeah. Yeah. Not surprising.
Yeah, especially Singapore. It would be an extremely rushed script.
Right.
So they would have
Right.
to on the fly fix the script kind of just
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Um
Well,
no,
that happens here. Yeah, that happens here.
yeah, it doesn't sound like it happens nearly as often. I feel translation
Mm.
stuff has really improved as more globalization has happened. Like you have people who are
And lest we forget that little thing called Google Translate. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. Of course, it's not perfect, but my gosh, it saves a lot of time.
it does. Yeah, it is never perfect because like it'll sound unnatural if
Oh,
you're
of course.
translating English to
But
Japanese. But if you know enough Japanese, you can make it
mm,
work.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, for example, it gets you in the ballpark. It gets you close to
Right.
and especially with something like Japanese or Chinese, where you have these characters that I mean, I've lived here a long time. My Japanese is okay, and I can read a fair amount. But sometimes it's like I don't know how to pronounce that. I look at it on the page and I know what they're getting at. It has to do with like ikiteru, which is also can be said nama, which is to live, live. It can be live. It can be like beer on tap, but the way it's said, I don't know sometimes. And a lot of times Japanese don't know. Being able to get the reading of something is Google Translate is huge, 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 I think. And of
Yeah.
course, then you can winnow it down. Of course, obviously, people a lot of the time, I would say a lot of times. Sometimes I'll go in if it's a short job and like you said, a rush job. I'll get a page. And I'm like, you used Google Translate, didn't you? And you want me to read this like it's
Yeah,
like,
I can
no,
tell.
I don't think so.
I can tell when someone's like writing Japanese and it looks like they just threw it through Google Translate or something like that. But I'm just like,
Sure.
wow, this looks really rough. But
Yeah, yeah.
like you said, like if you have a general grasp on Japanese, you can make it work, and it really does help with
Sure.
context and pronunciation and all that.
Sure.
But yes, it has definitely helped as far as like consistency and decent translations.
Yeah. I had a job with the Olympics last summer, and
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, well, sort of. It was doing the medal ceremonies,
Oh,
and I was doing the French part of the medal ceremonies because IOC says it's got to be English, French, and then of course the vernacular in the country. But I was there, and I'm not a native speaker. My French is okay, but a lot of the time I would have to do some stuff very much on the fly, and they'd change the script, and they would get something. It was a template from IOC, and it's like, wait, this is not right, and especially intonations or something. And I would have a bit of time, but it was that saved my butt, Google Translate, because I was there alone. It was, well, I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I'm an Olympic nerd. If I took some time, I could, off the top of my head, tell you the Olympics, Winter Olympics locations, maybe not, but I was a kid. When I was a kid, I loved the Olympics, especially when I was a kid, and I still do. And so I a real nerd. I really into the Olympics. So to do it was almost like a dream come true. I had spent money to get some tickets to a couple of events, but the reality of it and
yeah,
the way and it's not so much, it's the IOC in some ways, but also it's the event people that'll come in to run the events. I'll use something benign like beach volleyball, for example. They'll have a team from wherever come in and do the event. The obnoxious, like, okay, our next people are just blathering away. those guys are they're independent contractors, and they're different because I did 2 different events, and some are really, really good and some are turds, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's interesting because there's also a huge amount of people that came just to be there, and officially there were no spectators allowed. There were people watching, and they were almost all of them were somehow connected, like the International Federation of
Right.
skateboarders or whatever. But and sorry, but they shouldn't have been here. And the event I did, one of the events I did, it was not good. There was a guy from Britain who never wore a mask.
Oh,
Never.
oh my gosh.
Except when we took a photograph. And I was in a tiny little booth. We were all squished into this booth. And this was COVID central, man. This was the worst COVID had been. And he was allowed in. They were all allowed in with waivers that they were supposed to go do their job and then go home, go to their places and quarantine. Well, this guy actually literally went to Okinawa between the Olympics and Paralympics. So
wow.
Yeah, not good.
That is
not good.
Wild. Yeah.
But I mean, they have a saying here, Junin Toido. It's 10 people, 10 colors, to each his own, people do different things. And the guy, to put credit where credit is due, the one event I did, the coordinator was a prince. He was respectful. He was careful, and the English announcer they had brought in, he was, bless his heart, he did his COVID tests religiously. He said, yeah, went home and stayed in his little business hotel, and which means a tiny little narrow room every single night, and didn't do anything, and quarantined while he was here. He followed the rules, but I would say the vast majority did not. That's why the COVID cases skyrocketed.
Yeah.
In August. Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible how crazy it got.
Yeah.
But
well, knock wood. Hopefully things will start to get better.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. When you're doing something like animation, like Detective Conan,
yeah.
Are other actors with you in the booth, or is it just you and the staff?
I did the first Metante Conan or Detective Conan that I did was, a long time ago, like 10 years ago. I did one of the episodes from the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And not to spoiler alert, I was the bad guy. I was the murderer. So, which meant I got to do, I don't know how it is now, but they would have 2 episodes, like the beginning and the end. And we did the beginning, which was the setup, where you meet everybody, and then the mystery. Okay, there's been a murder. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That one, let's see. We did that one. There was 4 or 5 of us, and I think at one time there were 3 or 4 of us in there together. And then when I did my confession at the end, oops, spoiler alert, my confession at the end, I was alone with the director.
Okay.
And but I have a feeling for the TV show, they do it. I have a feeling the main people, they probably do it together. That's the way this studio is set up.
I wasn't sure if it was different for your experience, or because I know generally speaking, voice actors will record together.
Yeah, but for the movies, the 2 recent Metante Conan movies that I did, I was alone for sure. And I think that was because the English, the TV show I did, all my lines were in Japanese.
Yeah.
The 2 movies I did, my lines were in English. So I have a feeling, because it was a bit of an outlier, that there weren't as many. There were a couple of other actors that went in that day that also had lines in English, and they were separate as well. Because I think our lines, the English, you don't have a lot of people speaking English to each other. You would have, I think my character did talk to Conan and some of the others, but
okay.
Yeah, we did it separately. So
Okay, yeah, because you're Mark Iden in The Fist of Blue Sapphire and Alan McKenzie in The Scarlet Bullet.
Wow. Well, you know your stuff. Yeah. Oh, here's another thing. We talk about weird kismet, weird stuff. I was shooting something, and the agency I was dealing with, this woman was like a huge Mitante Conan fan, and she came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, and you did Ray and something," and she had watched that TV show, knew it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the Detective Conan fans here are serious
Mhm.
fans, serious fans.
It's like in the top 10 TV anime rankings every single week.
Really?
Oh yeah, the show is absolutely huge over in Japan.
Yeah. Here, yeah. Well, it's popular in other parts of the world, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did this did this drama a couple of years ago with a guy named Tsurube. I don't know if you know who he is.
That name sounds super duper familiar. Hold on.
If you saw his face, you would recognize him. He has seems like he's always smiling. He wears
Tsurube.
glasses. Tsurube. Yeah, if you look him up, you'll recognize him. Anyway, he was playing this guy named Yoshida Shigeru, who was a prime minister right after the war, Second World War. Just a cultural note: if you say the war here, it means the Second World War. Okay. Like they'll say Sengo, Senmai, before the war, after war, it means World War II. Anyway, it's almost a BCAD kind of thing. Anyway, he he played this guy, and I played MacArthur, actually, Douglas MacArthur, which I still don't feel like I'm old enough to play him. But anyway, it was a great challenge, and it was a great job, meaning a great opportunity. Anyway, Tsurube-san, he's a prince of a guy, but doesn't speak a lot of English. So we had one scene where we speak English, and he worked really hard on that. And the rest of the scenes, because he's the main character, and there's say 2-hour drama, maybe there's 10 scenes in English. So, that's a lot. That's a lot for him to memorize. So what happened was we did one scene where I spoke English and he spoke English. And then the other scenes, because almost all my scenes were with him, my lines would be in English, and then his lines would be in Japanese when we filmed it. And when they aired it, they would my lines were dubbed.
Oh my gosh.
Japanese, yeah. So that's and I knew that ahead of time, but it was just kind of like
I'm looking at his about Tsurube's profile.
You recognize him? You recognize him, right?
Vaguely, but I'm looking. He voiced Gru in the Japanese version of Despicable Me.
Really? I thought that was another guy. Huh. But he's incredible. Round face.
Yeah, smile, got the round glasses.
Yeah.
Kind of a serious widow's peak going on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make sure I've got the right guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was that's always kind of it's a reality of doing stuff here. Yeah. But for example, same person in history, Yoshida Shigeru, I did another thing that was for like a network, and then I did something for NHK, which it was about Yoshida Shigeru as well, and Ken Watanabe, who I guess you know.
Yes.
Yeah, he played Yoshida Shigeru, and I played a guy named Alan Dulles from Dulles Airport fame.
Oh.
Yeah, he was actually weird, and I can say this for sure that I am too young to know him. Yeah, he was like a big deal, I guess, in the 50s. Everybody knew who he was, and he was Secretary of State and some other things. But I mean, they named an airport after him. Anyway, it was fascinating. And I was lucky. It was one of the luckier jobs I had, because I had a lot of scenes with Ken. And Ken, his English is pretty good, so all of his lines were in English. So
oh, great.
Yeah, it was an interesting to compare and contrast.
Yeah. You were saying when we were exchanging emails, you were talking about Conan, and
Mhm.
you mentioned there was some kind of party for one of the movies.
Oh yeah. It was the
Scarlet
what's the
Bullet.
name of it? Scarlet Bullet. Yeah, it was tremendously successful here, meaning it made a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
and huge success. And I'm not sure. I'm sure it was probably the studio decided to have this big, huge party in a big ballroom. I mean, huge ballroom in a very nice hotel here in Tokyo. And there were, oh my gosh, I think I wrote 300, but now that I think about it, might have been closer to 500 people there. And it was just like a celebration, a thank you. And of course, a lot of execs and suits and stuff were there. But,
Yeah.
they invited the cast and stuff. And oh my gosh, the food was to die for. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of snide to say, but I mean, they spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to. It was to say thanks and to celebrate it, I guess, and to a bit of PR, I guess. But they didn't have to. It was just a really nice thing to do. And I got to see the director, and she said, "Well, come on up and say something." And I was like, "That's okay." The main cast members were of course over the moon, and they were a little tipsy, and so they were in the mood to talk. So I just kind of said,
That's great.
but I didn't want to go at first because I didn't know what it was, but because a lot of the time, well, you're kind of sometimes we're foreigners in Japan, or what I call the dancing bear syndrome. We're seen as these quasi exotic pets in some ways, and kind of don't like that, and
Right.
this was different. It was completely different. It was a party. Yeah, it was a party. It wasn't you weren't showing people off or anything. It was just
Right.
a party.
Yeah. Minor correction. It's actually it was Fist of Blue Sapphire, making the correction, making the correction just from the standpoint of Scarlet Bullet came out recently, so that was during COVID.
That's it.
So I don't want people thinking this party happened like recently, and
That's
all
right.
of a sudden
That's right. This was way before.
Yeah.
Yep. The one set. I'm sorry, I get the two mixed up sometimes.
No, I totally get it. The names are similar.
Yeah. One set in Singapore. Scarlet Bullet is about a maglev and a
Fist of Blue Sapphire.
World
looking at Wikipedia.
And a world supporting event. I remember that because COVID was just kicking in. It was March of 2020.
One last hurrah before.
Yeah, and they were like, hey, everything's okay. And I'm like, no, not really. So
yeah, and then everything went to hell.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. On that, I mean, just kind of as a segue, what has working during the pandemic been like?
Yeah, you kind of read my mind. I was just going to mention that. In some ways, good. Overall, work has seriously declined. Meaning the amount of work, the amount of offers. Overall, the amount of work the amount of offers has come way down. But on the positive side, I do a fair amount of work from home. Well, I mean, today I was able to get my stuff and my recording stuff and microphone and stuff, and talk to you this way instead of like a cheap little microphone attached to the inside of a laptop.
So right.
I do today. I've got a remote recording. Actually, I did a first take last night, and they'll check it and we'll redo it if need be today. I do several programs, substantive parts in these. These are like a cooking show. I do them remotely. I record them at home.
Wonderful.
And that I'll give credit to a man named Saito at NHK. He had the forethought right around the time I did that Scarlet Bullet Metante film or Conan film. He said, "Hey, it's getting scary. You had mentioned remote," and I said, "Yeah, I can do it for sure." And
Yeah.
I kind of could. I learned a lot. I worked in a radio station for a long time. I know, but stuff at home, I was like, but I got my things together and figured out how to do it at home, So yeah, I am able to give stuff broadcast quality every week from my house. And
That's wonderful.
and here's something kind of interesting. Maybe I was in a live action Hollywood film with Nicolas Cage, and I lucked out and had a pretty good party. Yeah, pretty good part. It's called Prisoners of the Ghostland, and the director is a Japanese guy. Sono Shion is his name. This happened just before COVID. We wrapped in December of 2019. Last time I was in a restaurant was literally 2 years ago when Nick was here. He wanted, a little personal, but yeah, he wanted to go to Toei Studio, the Godzilla studios. And that was the last time I was in a restaurant inside. I mean,
right.
But yeah, we finished right before, and I got an urgent email from them. This would have been Christmas 2020. And they said, yeah, we need to redub some lines. And can you do it? And they're mixing it and doing the final edit in Hollywood, right, in California. Like, yeah, I can. And I was away from my house, but I had my little studio with me. So yeah, there's some lines in the final cut that I did at my house.
That's incredible.
Yeah. One line for sure, because it still ran it a little long, even though I redid it a couple of times. But yeah, it was a plot. They changed the plot a little bit, so they needed to. My character needed to say something a little different. I guess maybe they cut a scene or something. But okay. So yeah, in this, I got a Blu-ray copy of it and watched it. I was like, yeah, there it is.
That's amazing.
There's that line I did at home. When I was sitting around in my sweatpants and t-shirt.
That is incredible. Yeah, it's kind of what happened here. Is that I mentioned Funimation. They pretty much had to do a crash course with everyone. They sent everyone the same kind of mic and told them generally how to set up a home studio of sorts. You can record in a closet. People, like, some of the actors would record where they're recording. Like they'd like have video of, okay, I'm in my closet, I've got a blanket set up. So a lot of people were recording from home, and they did this all in a very short period of time. Sure. So it was absolutely amazing how fast. Yeah,
similar. There's a little bit similar, because I guess there were other ADR, they call them, I guess. Here they call it off-record, but additional dialogue recording. But they had sent out this thing to a few people and said, you can use your iPhone, and it was, very basic steps, and make sure you're in a quiet place or a closet. And I wrote him back and I said, these are the specs. Are these what you want? You want it at 48,000 megahertz? Like, you understand? I'm like, yeah. yeah.
I've been around a microphone or two.
Well, yeah. And I didn't want to sound too arrogant, but I did learn that, because this first few things I used to do, I would just do real basic stuff on I had a good microphone, but I think I just did like Windows record voice or something. And then I realized, no. Because I did this weekly thing on NHK. It's called Today's Close-Up. I can talk about that. And they were like, okay, no, these are the specs we have. It needs to be 48,000 megahertz, 24 PCUs. Like, okay, fine. So I made sure I had the right software, and yeah, it's good. I've only had a couple of things where, there's been a little screech, but most of the time, I'm careful, and I don't just do it and send it. I listen and make sure everything's fine. And for some of the programs I've done, I've got a lot of the stuff. I've got 8 seconds, not 9, not 6, 8. And that's the way they want it. So most of the time it's okay, but I'll have to redo it. But once I get going and get it set up and in the mood. But and sometimes this close-up, again, today's close-up, there's a deadline. I get the script and I've got to get it done like within an hour, and then wait around for them. Wait for them to say okay. Other stuff they'll say, okay, here's the stuff, here's the visual, here's the script, and we need it by day after tomorrow at the latest. And usually if I can, I'll just do it right away. I did do one where this first thing I mentioned for NHK, we would do it live, basically. We would do it on Zoom, like you and I are talking, and I'm trying to think how I did it. Maybe I used two computers, and I would record. We would have the Zoom meeting on one, and then I would record on another computer, and they could hear what I was saying. And so it was literally live. There are other ways to do it, but anyway, that's the way we did that. We ended up stopping doing that because it was a hell of a lot of pressure on me to get everything running and working right. And yeah. Anyway, what we do now is I'll just do it when I get the script, and they'll check it and they'll say, okay, can you change this part? Can you add this part? And then go back. But yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's changed, and the world has changed. And in some parts, thankfully, are actually for the better. Like this thing I mentioned, I doubt that we'll go back to a studio because there's no point. Because they have to hire a studio for $400 for something I'm doing myself, or we do offline,
Right.
And the thing is, I've not tooting my horn. It's just it's the same thing, and it sounds the same. Yeah, and
Wow.
it's convenient for them. That's the other thing I realized is that this coordinator, she's like, okay, great, I'll check it tomorrow morning. Okay, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I realized I talked to somebody just yesterday who's still doing the female version. He's like, yeah, I have to go to such and such a studio. It's kind of a pain. And I'm like, really? I see. Oh, okay. So that part of it's changed. And
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, and the whole thing of like broadcast news, you'll see stuff on CNN or whatever. Well, they'll have a guest, and it used to be they would go into some studio with some fake background or whatever. Now they just do a Zoom, and varying quality. Sometimes it looks good, and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
The guy with the guy talking about North Korea, and his kids come into his office and start playing around. I don't know if you ever saw that hilarious video, because very serious, talking about North Korean aggression, and these kids come in and start playing around.
That's funny.
Yeah, and and I know some anchors that they say, oh yeah, it's never going back. There's no point. And I can see it from my little vantage point, is that, like I said, there's no point in renting a studio and gathering everybody. And whereas, we send out the information, I do it here, make changes. It takes a little longer because if there's a change or if there's a mistake or something, have to redo it. But gee, and it's safer. It's safer.
Yeah, that's true.
I've done some live shots, some movies and dramas and stuff, and not good, Yui. Not good. Not safe at all.
What are some other favorite projects you worked on?
I was in Shin Gojira, the new-ish Godzilla film.
Yeah.
That was fun, entertaining. I remember Higuchi-san, the director, was literally had a stopwatch when we did the take.
Oh my gosh.
And I say that it's slightly derisively when that first happened, but I had a couple of days. They ended up, of course, editing crap out of it. But I understand now. I do understand that because of the way the film was put together, very fast paced on purpose, not so much, not just thrill wise, but it's slant on the government. And just the fact that it was this massive hit here was kind of fun. And my part in it was so tiny, but yeah.
Just being on
This,
Godzilla is really cool.
yeah, in some ways. And I got to know. I mentioned Nick Cage. That was he said to me, "Oh yeah, you play like the secretary or something." I'm like, or president or something. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Turns out he's this huge Godzilla fan.
Oh,
Huge. Yeah, yeah. So I don't. He wouldn't mind me telling the story. He was here 2 years ago, and he wanted to go to Toei Studios. The Toho, sorry, Toho. They're real similar, the names.
yeah.
So they made Godzilla, the original Godzilla, and all the Seven Samurai. What's his name? Kurosawa. All the Kurosawa films, or no, not all. Kurosawa got started there, I should say. So anyway, maybe this is interesting to you. When he was here, he really wanted to see it. I was like, yeah, okay, fine. And I know the people at Toho. I had done a promotion thing for them. So, and I managed to put together like a private little tour for him. And he was like, well, I want to see where it was shot. And and I was remembering that some of the times we had a couple of parties and we went out a couple of times. And he had either a Gameron, and I'm showing my ignorance here, or a Godzilla T-shirt on. You know. Oh. So he gets there and he's like, yeah, I want to see the studio. And I think in his mind, the sets were still standing, you know, from 1953 or whatever.
Amazing.
I'm like, no. That's production wrap like 60 years ago or something.
Yeah, a very long time ago.
Yeah. But
Amazing.
I did mention to the guy, the guy I knew there, and he took us to the props department, and there's a very crucial prop in the film, and they still had that thing, and it literally was under plexiglass, and so he got to see that, and I think maybe to hold it or something. So
that was really cool.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. But like I said, I think he was envisioning that the sets were still standing.
No. That's cool. You got to meet Nick Cage at all. That is.
Well, yeah, we had some scenes together, and
yeah,
I've seen him a couple of times. He's a good guy. He's very genuine. He's genuinely a nice guy.
Good.
He seems like it, and he is. That's the thing.
Okay, that's very, very good. I know some actors are not very friendly.
Yep. No, he's very good people. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So any other projects that you really, really liked that you can think of off the top of like your head?
Let's see. I did a something that was a manga, actually. It's called Moguro no Uta, which is the mole sings, as in the snitch sings. It was a print manga, and they made it into a movie. They've made 3, and I was in the 3rd one just recently. It was shot during COVID. Yeah, and I played a mafiosa. I played a heavy, kind of a spooky guy, and that was a lot of fun. I learned Italian, Italian for it, and worked hard on a Sicilian accent. That was kind of fun. No, it was all in all, I really enjoyed that, actually.
That's amazing.
I do different acting roles. Like I was in a independent film called Woman in the Chair, which is still in production, I guess. Technically, they're still working on some things, but we were doing that as COVID now, as COVID was exploding. But that was a lot of fun. It was a horror film.
Yeah.
And I was doing that at the same time I was doing the Nick Cage film. So it was interesting. It was like 2 different extremes, you know. I do a fair amount of stuff for NHK, which is NHK dramas. And because I do voice narration work for them and acting work are completely different, literally different staffs. One does not help the other at all. Yeah.
I guess on the other side of the coin, what's some of your least favorite or alternatively most challenging projects you've worked on?
It's a good question. Don't want to give too many details, but I think I told you I was at a big huge speech I was asked to memorize or learn, and it was way too much to ask someone, even regardless if it's their native tongue or not. A few days
Oh, yeah.
before, like a 5-minute scene, or no, 7-minute scene, 5-minute monologue, and they did let people read it, but it was like, what are you thinking? I did an anime. I was given the script literally the night before, and I recorded it the next day. All of my lines were in Japanese, and it was a substantial number of lines. And yeah, it was not good. It was not good because anyway, they've already got most of the visuals at least set. So you've got, when I was saying before, around 8 seconds. No, 8.2 seconds, no more, no less. It's got to fit in. And most of the time it's a rush to get them to fit in. That was not a good one. That was let's see. I don't know. Not too many.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing if you
Yeah.
can't think of any bad
Yeah.
experiences.
I've had challenging ones where I had a lot of dialogue to memorize, and yeah, it's it's a challenge. I mean, Japanese is not that difficult to say, but when you have to say a lot of it and quickly,
Yeah.
and if it's unfamiliar terms, and regardless of what language it is, that's not so easy.
Yeah. I trip over my own tongue speaking English.
Yeah, that's what I say. People say, well, how many languages do you speak? I say, I try to speak English.
Yeah.
Still working on it. Still working on it.
Yeah. Who do you look up to in like your general field of work, be it acting or photography? Who generally like inspires you?
That's a good question. David Yamashita, he's a photographer for National Geographic. I actually I was lucky enough to meet him once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was here. It was right around the time Obama was elected president. I remember that because he predicted it. So that would have been about 2008. Actors, a little old, but Robert De Niro, I think, is just fantastic.
Excellent actor.
Yep. Let's see, Ken Watanabe. I'll say him. I worked with him, and I learned a lot from that guy. He just little things about working with a camera. I'll give you a real specific example. When they say action, especially if it's like in the middle of a scene, you're kind of starting from nowhere, and he'll as they're kind of counting down to starting, they'll go Japanese. They'll go yoi tato. It's like and action. When they're saying and, he'll start speaking like the line before to give it to you, to kind of prime you. So in other words, the idea is for a take or something, a lot of the time I'll start moving my legs and halfway walking even before they say action, because of course they're going to edit it, but a lot of the time, and you'll see it in a film or TV show or something, you can tell people have just started walking, whereas the scene is like in the middle of the scene. So he kind of primes the other guy to get you going, so that when the action comes, it's already started and already been moving. And that was a little thing, but makes a big difference, and it kind of gets you going and gets you moving. And this is the same for voice stuff. It's not just on camera.
Yeah,
it's the same kind of thing. So
wow.
Yeah, I'd say Ken. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's big. He's a large person. Because I'm 188 centimeters, about 6'1", between 6'1" and 6'2", and he is too. And for about that size. And in Japan, when I first came here, I couldn't buy clothes off the rack. Shoes were a serious problem. So yeah, and now I'm just under the gun. The Japanese are getting bigger because clothes, I can just get clothes now. It's not a wide variety, but and he's the same. And I said, "Where did you get your clothes?" And yeah, it was a pain. I had to go special places and pay a lot of money. But
yeah. What do you do to warm up?
I had I was lucky enough in college to have a former silver screen star. Her name was Jean Muir, and she taught me, I am the very model of a modern major general. I have information of vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the fights historical from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. And that's from Pirates of Penzance. It's Gilbert and Sullivan thing. And it's an actual song, but I learned that and other just tongue twisters and stuff to get my mouth warmed up. I like to go on the set and get comfortable with it. As far as reading stuff, I get that script and I go through it. I read it up and down, backwards and forwards. I make sure timing. I practice. I know a couple of other people that will just show up and wing it, and even like little widget jobs. No, you don't do that. You prepare. You prepare, and once you get there, and if it's an acting thing, then you let it go. You've done all your prep. You're comfortable with it. You've learned it. You've memorized it, and then you can let it go and let it be spontaneous and flow. But as far as other, you do your homework. You got to do it. I'm shocked that people don't prepare. Some people. I'll give you a really quick example. I worked for this company one time, and again, it was kind of like a widget description job. And this woman would be very fastidious about sending people a physical script. And if they had it, they would be like a DVD of the visuals, but would go out of her way to send people a script. And this woman not only didn't look at the script, she didn't even bring that script with her, and showed up at the studio. And the agent person was furious, and the client was livid. And they fired her on the spot, and never worked for her again. This woman has lived here for a long time, and I guess a veteran, as it were. But I was like, that wasn't very smart. If somebody posts you a script, they want you to prepare it.
Yeah.
And expect you to prepare it. And it's not that hard. This isn't splitting atoms here. It's not that difficult. Like I said, if somebody puts time into helping you prepare, then you should prepare.
Exactly.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm shocked, and I'll say this, especially the foreigners here that just kind of show up. Yeah, and nowadays people rarely will post you something like a script. Everything's digital, but still, send it to you. You damn well better be prepared.
Yeah, gotta do your homework.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And like I said, once you do your homework, then when you are doing the homeband, the performance, the live thing, then you can let it go and use a sense of doing it live or for the first time, whatever. Yeah. But you can't do that if you're not prepared, I don't think.
Right. Yeah. And then what do you do in your free time?
Like I said, I enjoy gardening. I like to cook.
Sorry, did I ask that already?
No. I said that in the beginning. What are my hobbies? No, don't worry about it. I enjoy watching. I'm into documentaries for some reason. I've been recently watching a lot of space documentaries, like Voyages to the Planets. The James Webb Space Telescope has really got my interest. What that is? That new huge successor to the Hubble that they've launched. My birthday is July 20th, which is the day they set foot on the moon. So I've been a bit of a space guy. But even before that, I remember as a kid, I was really into the moon race. Yeah, I fly drones. That is kind
Oh,
of an offshoot of being a photographer.
yeah.
I've spent a little too much money on them. I haven't done much since COVID because just feeling I shouldn't be going outside unless I can justify it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I enjoy that. But like I said,
That's cool.
I have to admit, I say, oh, it's for photography, but the truth is they're fun.
They're
They're a
just
whole lot of
fun.
fun. Yeah. Have you ever flown one?
No, but I've watched friends fly them, and they
Oh,
seem
you
like
should.
they're really
Oh,
cool.
you should. Oh, you should. They're great fun. They're amazing technology.
So for some wrap up questions, if you had the chance to voice any character or be on any project, what would you choose?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Oh geez. I'll just the first thing that popped into my head just now is I'll just say acting wise, the 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 movie Amadeus was originally a stage play, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or the stage play, but there's a really great part in that, and that's Salieri. It's not Mozart, it's Salieri. It's the other guy.
Mm.
That I would love to do that someday. I kind of identify with that. Voicing something. Oh, that's a tough one. Um, I'd have to get back to you on that. I haven't thought about that, to be
the
honest with you.
the one I hear the most is The Simpsons.
Okay. That's
I've had
interesting.
more than one person tell me The Simpsons just kind of off the top of the head. Like I talked to Eric Kelso, and that's what he
Yeah,
told me
yeah,
was The Simpsons.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if yeah, that okay. I would say South Park. So it would be fun to be on South Park. That's maybe kind of where I'm at. Kind of not to besmirch Eric, who's a good guy, but I'm yeah.
Loved talking to him. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, he is a good guy. Yeah, I've known him for quite a while. I don't get to see him much at all, which is a pity.
Yeah,
But
just
yeah,
the way everyone always tells me because I talk to I don't know. Do you know Ward Sexton?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's just that they always tell me it's kind of everyone knows everyone. It's
Yeah, it
not a
is a
lot
bit
of
of
them.
a small world. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is a bit of a small world. Yeah, yeah. Voice wise, we don't see each other that much. Actors, we do a bit more.
What projects are you presently working on, or like what's on the general horizon for Charles
Uh,
Glover?
I've got something in the works, a possible thing with NHK, and I literally don't know much about it other than it's part of someone in angst. That's all I was told. I've got an indie thing probably coming up in May,
Mm.
and I know even less about that. I'm going to be producing more of my visual things. I've been kind of trying to preserve a bunch of my old visual stuff, and I've got my film scanner working again. So I've got a lot of images that I need to do stuff with, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I've got some ideas about some travel log things to do.
Hmm.
I'm going to pursue that more. I'm a little late to the game, but I've got a project that I'm hoping to get a producer on. It's about a very dysfunctional family that actually COVID is a godsend in that they don't like to be together. So the only way they can be together is through Zoom because of COVID. And then they realize, well, actually, we kind of like it like this.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm hoping that it's a biracial family. So
Mm.
I'm hoping to get that moving again. It's been it's stopping and starting, but hopefully it'll
Yeah.
get moving again.
What words of wisdom do you have for anyone that's either looking to get into voice work or photography? What words of wisdom do you have for listeners?
Okay, the photography is pretty much easy, and that is tell the camera what to do. Don't just point and shoot. You're the master of the camera. People a lot of the time just easy to say put it in automatic literally, and they're saying, well, that's not what my eye saw. Well, of course, you got to tell the camera what to do. As far as voice work, I would say stick with it, stay at it. One of the best things you can do is record yourself and listen, as painful as it might be. You learn a lot by, back in radio days, we'd call it a air check, record yourself and listen. And not so much into say, oh, I sound great, or oh, I sound terrible, but oh, I can learn from that. That's, I think, one of the best things you can do. Learn by what you don't. I talked a lot about preparing, and it's a friend of mine once said, the enemy of good is better, that you never stop. But in some ways, that's not such a bad thing, is that you learn, and it's never going to be perfect, but you can keep striving to improve. And that's how you keep things fresh. I've got this program where I say the same thing for a minute every single time, and they're like, well, we can use the one from before, and I'm like, well, no, let's do it again, and let me do it again, and maybe a tiny little different nuance can be better, and to keep it fresh. And as we change as people, we learn things about the world, about ourselves, and that is reflected in how we talk to each other, or if you're narrating an anime or something. It's this same dynamic, is that it keeps it fresh, it makes it new, and it ultimately makes it maybe interesting for people that are listening.
Anything you want to advertise? Anything? It's a free chance to plug something.
Sure. This film I talked about, Prisoners of the Ghostland. It's my sister saw it. It was debuted at Sundance actually a year ago. Yeah, got good reaction, and apparently it's on Amazon Prime, so you don't have to pay money if you've got Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
To see it. It's actually pretty good. It's interesting, and I would say that to you, if you have a chance to see it, check it out. It's interesting. I play a character named Enoch, so I'm the leader of the Ghostland, and it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to me. You have an excellent rest of your day, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. Yeah. Actually, I have to run to the dentist right now. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Great to talk to you, Yui.
Thank you to Charles for taking the time to do this interview, and thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe via your favorite podcast app to know first when an episode is posted. If you want to hear more info about English dubs, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@yuiharuhara. Here's my guest next time on English Voiceover in Asia.
I'm Darren Cleveland.
If you're an actor that has worked in Asia and would like to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to yuiharuhara@gmail.com. If you're a listener and would like to know when I have upcoming guests, please follow me on Twitter @yuiharuhara or stay tuned to my YouTube community tab. From there, you'll be able to ask guests questions that may be featured in their interview. Until next time, take care.